Hello everyone! This is our January craft, the first adult craft of the year, and we are going to make some hand warmers. They are microwavable, they are filled with rice. We have some fabric here. I'm going to show you the different sizes and the way to sew it. Perfect for even sore muscles, but also great for school pickup, going for walks, outdoor events, or anything else you might need them for. So you have these two pieces of big fabric, but I'm going to show you with these smaller ones. I would do like 4.5 inches to get two squares out of the big fabric, or you can do it as a big square. So however you would like. This was just me trying to measure it out and figure out what sizes to do, and then I decided to go for the whole big thing because then you can use it as a heating pad, drape it across your shoulder, your knee, whatnot. So you have your two fabrics and we're going to put them together, right sides together, so that means your pattern is facing inwards and you're looking at the wrong side. And there are different ways that you can fold it and arrange it. So here's what that looks like on a pattern. You could see a little more clearly with the flowers. And so you can sew all the way around and make sure you leave a hole so that we can turn it right side out and also fill it with rice. You can also fold it and then you're only sewing the three sides because you have that nice fold there. Again, you're not going to sew all the way around. You're going to leave a gap so you can fill it with rice and turn it right side out. If you want to use the fabric large, you can do the same thing. You can fold it in half and then you have two larger ones. You can put the two fabrics together and have one big one. You can cut it into, like I said, the 4.5 inch squares, and then you can get separate ones. However you want to use your fabric, that's great. I'm going to show you on the two large squares together. Before you get started sewing, you can scent your rice if you would like to. If you want it to be aromatherapy, every time you warm it up, you sort of reactivate the scent, even if you feel as if it's fading. So to do that, you get your rice and you put it into a cup and you can add essential oil. You can also add herbs like a dried lavender or something like rosemary. You can also add spices like cinnamon. Smells so good when you heat up with that rice. So I have a lavender oil. You really don't need that many drops. I put a little too much in here, but then you're going to stir it up and let it absorb. 2 drops is really probably fine. So stir it up, let it absorb while you're sewing, and then your rice will be nice and scented. So now I'm going to go ahead and sew. Make sure that your fabric is lined up. If you want to be more precise, you can get some straight pins and tack them in to hold your fabric sides together. That way everything stays lined up as you are sewing. I chose not to do that. You can see I thought about it here for a minute and then I said, that's okay. I'm just going to sew this just for demonstration. As you can see here, I have red thread just so it would be a little more visible on the video, but you can use whatever color you want. It really shouldn't show unless you do any top stitching. So I just made a knot. I doubled up my thread so it would be nice and strong, and all I'm going to do is a pretty simple back stitch. So I'll bring my needle through and then I'll go backwards and keep bringing it around. Just like I said before with the straight pins, if you want to be a little neater, you can also draw yourself a line with chalk or pencil or whatever you would like. Again, you're going to sew through it, it's really not going to show, just so that you can follow a line and make sure it's nice and straight and even all the way around. I did not, I just sort of went for it, but here I am. I'm just going to get my stitch started. So you bring your needle through and then you go back and bring it back through again. So you're going to stitch almost all the way around, but remember we are leaving a pocket open where we are not sewing it close so that we can bring this right side out. You want to keep your stitches kind of small and close together. If you make your stitches too long, your rice might slip out a little bit in between your stitches. It might not feel as secure, so I like to keep my stitches kind of short and small rather than trying to get the sewing over with faster by making long, large stitches. Okay, I have finished sewing all the way around. Please don't judge how wonky it is. I realized I was in a rush, but you can see I left this whole side, this whole little quarter here open so that I can flip this from inside out to right side in, and you'll see how nice and clean the seams are. You can also trim off any excess fabric if you don't want it to be bulky, and then you can also trim the corners if you want your corners to look really nice and neat. To get rid of the bulk in your corners, you just snip little triangles out. Sometimes you don't even need to take the little triangle out, but it takes a lot of bulk, and you can just make those little slits, and that helps your corners be a little neater and more perfect if you want it to be that way. So now I'm just going to turn this right side out and then pop out my corners, and you can see my seams look pretty nice. You can kind of see some spots where maybe my stitches were too long or uneven, but it should be just fine here. And then I'm going to pour my rice in. If you did a larger square like I did, you'll probably need more rice. I really gave enough rice for the littler squares, but you can also add other dried grains in there too, just not popping corn. Definitely don't do that. But you don't want it to be too stiff because then it's kind of hard and uncomfortable if you're using it for muscle relaxation. So now I'm going to show you how to do the ladder stitch to give a nice invisible closure. Now that we've turned this right side out, you can see we've created this little seam allowance here. And using the channels sort of created by the seam allowance, you can see where I'm sticking my finger underneath, we're going to slide the needle through the channels and make it's called a ladder stitch, almost like a ladder, and it will be fairly invisible, and this is a nice way to close things up. If you don't want to do that, you can just top stitch it and use a color coordinating thread. But so you can see I'm coming from underneath, and I'm poking the needle through in that little seam allowance there, the little tunnel that we've created. And then I'm going to just go directly across the road, and I'm bringing the needle through the channel before poking it back out. So our thread is going to be mostly invisible because we're running into that seam allowance. And then go back across the road, and the same thing, run it under the channel now on the first side. So you keep going from side A to side B, running your needle through the seam allowance. And every time you go in, you want to make sure that you go across the road. So see, I just went right across the road directly, ran my needle through the channel, and when you pull it tight, your stitches pretty much disappear. Once you get all the way to the end and pull your stitches tight, you're going to finish this up, but just by tying a knot. I like to use my needle to help myself tie the knot. It's a little bit better, easier, especially if you have some dexterity issues, to use your needle. Tie a knot. I do 2 or 3 knots, and then all you do is use the tip of your needle to help you poke that knot right into the inside, and then it becomes invisible. And then that's it. You have this heating pack. You can see where mine got a little wonky because I was rushing, but that's okay. Microwave it for 30 seconds to 1 minute. Don't go too long. You don't want to scorch your rice or your fabric. And that is it. You have handmade your own little hand warmer. Enjoy it. Stay warm and cozy.